It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Let's get out of here. Aye.
Oh, hello, it's Brother Arab from Got a Minute. You're probably wondering, why are we there before the tribulation? Well, fellow restrainer, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7, we must be taken out of the way. So let's read some stuff. The primary purpose of this video is to show you another proof of why we're there before the 7 years of tribulation. Revelation 4 and 5 gives us all these characters. I've talked about that before. We got John, a type of the rapture, being caught up in Revelation 4 verse 1. We got the one on the throne. That's a second example of the character development. We have the 24 elders. We've got the 7 lamps of fire, which I believe is the church. That's another reason why we're there. Jesus wants his furniture there before he acts as high priest. He wants the lampstands, table of showbread, his ephod, everything. Altar of incense, the prayers of the saints, all that. He wants it all present. And the 7 lamps of fire is the church, I believe. Another character development is the 4 living creatures, the strong angel, the lamb, that's Jesus. The prayers of the saints, that's us as well. That's what I believe. It says, behold, we are made holy through your blood, essentially. You're going to make us kings and priests, essentially. And then there's also many angels. So there's like 9 groups or so. And there's already 3 proofs of the rapture. John, the 7 lampstands, and the prayers of the saints. But why? Why are we there? And I contest that we are there because we need to witness Jesus open his title deed. In Revelation 5, it says he takes the scroll out of well, I'll read it properly. He takes the scroll, and I saw the right hand of him who sat on the throne, a scroll written inside on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaim with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals? And no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it. I wept much because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. But one of the elders said to me, do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals. And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits sent out into all the earth. Then he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. That's Revelation 5:7. So he took this scroll, which I believe is the title deed of the Lamb. You see, God, Jesus, owns this earth. He owns the right to redemption. In a Jubilee year, nobody actually really owned land in a way. I mean, people owned it, but it was pretty much more like how we would think of a lease. They would lease land for a certain amount of time, and then after 50 years, it would go back to the original owner. There's lots of laws in there, but the idea is it was more of a lease mentality, how we would understand it. It wasn't really like you own it like forever. And so, but the whole idea of that is to explain that this whole earth is God's, and it all belongs to Jesus. And we are temporarily taking care of it. But Jesus is going to come back and redeem the land. But we are co-heirs of this land. So he's going to want us to be there witnessing this title deed as he opens it up. So that's part of this whole thing too. And so we're going to go back in the Old Testament and see some witnesses here and explain a few things. So Genesis 41 verse 32, and the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice because the thing is established by God. So we're going to find 2 confirmations, actually 3, where there are witnesses at the time of opening a title deed or purchasing the land. Jeremiah 32. Jeremiah is told, listen, I want you to buy the land because I'm going to redeem it. Long story short, he does buy the land in prison for the idea of redemption. And so it says there in 32 verse 7, buy my field which is in Anathoth, for the right of redemption is yours to buy it. Later on, it goes on to say in verse 10, and I signed the deed and sealed it and took witnesses. So there's witnesses, and weighed the money on the scales. And so I took the purchase deed, both that which was sealed according to the law and custom, and that which was open, and I gave the purchase deed to Baruch, the son of Neriah, son of Mashiach, in the presence of Henmel, my uncle's son, and in the presence of the witnesses who signed the purchase deed. Oh, that's interesting. There was witnesses there. Not only were they witnesses, they signed the purchase deed. We, I believe, need to witness our Jesus, our Lamb, because we're co-heirs, and we might even, well, I don't know if we're going to sign it, but wouldn't that be interesting? Okay, here's another spot in the Bible, and that's in Genesis 23. Abraham, Sarah dies, and Abraham is looking for a place to bury Sarah. He wants to purchase land to bury Sarah. He goes to the sons of Heth. He says, "Can I purchase some lands, all you guys?" And they say collectively, "Yeah, you can purchase our land. Pick whatever you want." He says, "Okay, I'll take the land from Ephron." Ephron says, "Sure." And then they go back and forth a little bit, and eventually they settle on 400 shekels. So Abraham purchases the land off Ephron for 400 shekels so he can bury Sarah. And it says in Genesis 23, verse 18, "To Abraham as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of his city." And so he purchases the land in the presence of the witnesses of the sons of Heth. So we've got witnesses with Jeremiah, and we've got witnesses with the sons of Heth. That's Jeremiah 32. Verse of Numbers, Genesis 23 is another time. So there's two witnesses of land being purchased with witnesses there. Again, Jesus, the Redeemer, is coming back to redeem the land and the people. The land and the people. And so we go to the book of Ruth now. You guys know I like the book of Ruth. What happens in the book of Ruth? Now this whole story is elevated to another level. Because we know Jesus, the true kinsman redeemer, which is Boaz in this story of Ruth. We're waiting for our kinsman redeemer to redeem the land and his people and his bride. Ruth was read on the Feast of Weeks. Let's read chapter 4. Now Boaz, who is the kinsman redeemer, went up to the gate. Ooh, that sounds like Genesis 23. And sat down there, and behold, the close relative, who I believe represents the law, who is nameless, because he doesn't save Ruth, the law doesn't save us. Jesus, our kinsman redeemer, saved us through his grace. Of whom Boaz had spoken came by. So Boaz said, "Come aside, friend, sit down here." So he came aside and sat down, and he took 10 men, witnesses, of the elders of the city, and said, "Sit down here," so that they sat down. Then he said to the close relative, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, sold the piece of land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. Long story short, this guy, who I believe represents the law, says, "I don't want it." He gives him his shoe, takes it off, which was a sign saying, "I don't want it. You take it." And so that actually might have been a little hint as to why John in the New Testament said, "I'm not even worthy to loosen his sandal strap." It might have been John saying, Jesus is the rightful heir and the Redeemer. I'm not. Keep your shoes on, you Redeemer. Keep your shoes on. So that might have been why John said that, but we don't know for sure. Having said that, the custom was if you were declining, you take off your sandal. So that's what the close relative did. And at the end of the story, all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman who is coming to your house like Rachel and Leah." And so, and then there's a reference to Bethlehem. Bethlehem means house of bread. Okay, so what we got here is we have a big story. We have Jesus opening up the scroll. It seems to be a title deed. Jeremiah 32, we've got Jeremiah buying land, redeeming it for the future, because he's in hopes that people will come back and purchase it and redeem it back to himself. We've got Abraham and Sarah. Abraham buys land to bury Sarah. There's witnesses there. There's witnesses in Jeremiah 32, and there's witnesses in chapter 4 of Ruth. Not only is Ruth a type and shadow of the raptured church, the bride. The last mention of Ruth is when Boaz took her. Boaz took Ruth, and that's the last mention of Ruth at the end of the story when she was married. And then there's the genealogy. But we have really three witnesses of witnesses being there when there is land involved and redemption being involved. So I contest that the restrainer must be present in front of the Lamb witnessing the Lamb open the scroll. Why? Because we are co-heirs. Why are we co-heirs? It says that in many spots, but I'll just pop over to Revelation 2, verse 26. And he who overcomes and keeps my works until the end, to him I will give power over the nation. He shall rule them with a rod of iron. They shall be dashed to pieces like the potter's vessel. Another spot, Revelation 3:21. To him who overcomes, I will grant him to sit with me on my throne, as I also overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. So, and the faithful church is given the key of David. It says in Revelation 3, verse 7. So we've got this idea, key of David, could that be a symbol of the possession of the Lamb? Maybe. We want to strive to be like the Church of Philadelphia, where that is quoted. So you and I are inheritors of the kingdom. We are kings and priests. We're going to be part of his government system. That's what it says. And so it would be so fitting that we would be there, witnessing him open the title deed and the scroll and the judgments that are coming live in real time. I'd say that is our fourth confirmation of a pre-tribulation rapture, just using Revelation 4 and 5 alone. Thank you, guys. You, the restrainer, we are waiting. Satan can't do what he wants to do if we're here. So we got to be taken out of the way. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you in the clouds very soon. We're one day closer. See you in the clouds. Go, Jesus, go. Adios, muchachos.